Hey everyone, like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends and family. Thought a weekend trip to Evergreen Ridge would become the nightmare I still can't shake. It was supposed to be a simple visit to my grandparents' cabin, a respite from the chaos of city life. Nestled deep in the heart of the old pine forest, Evergreen Ridge was a place where time seemed to stand still. The air was crisp, filled with the scent of pine and the promise of serenity. But that weekend, everything changed. My grandparents had always been welcoming, their home a sanctuary filled with warmth and stories of days gone by. I arrived on Friday evening, the sun dipping below the horizon, casting long shadows through the towering pines. The cabin looked exactly as I remembered, rustic yet sturdy, with smoke curling from the chimney and lights glowing softly through the windows. "Welcome home, Ellie," Grandpa greeted me, his voice a comforting rumble. Grandma was busy in the kitchen, her hands deftly preparing a hearty meal. The cabin was alive with the sounds of laughter and clinking dishes, the kind of harmonious chaos that made me feel instantly at ease. As night fell, we gathered around the fireplace, sharing stories and sipping hot cocoa. The storm outside began to brew, dark clouds rolling in swiftly, the wind howling through the trees. Lightning flashed, illuminating the room in stark white light, followed by the deep growl of thunder. The storm was intense, but we were safe inside, cocooned by the sturdy walls of the cabin. Later that night, after everyone had gone to bed, I couldn't sleep. The storm was relentless, the wind battering the cabin with an unearthly ferocity. I lay in my grandparents' room, listening to the rain pelting against the roof and the occasional crash of thunder. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the house, followed by a series of strange noises, whispers, footsteps, something moving in the darkness. I sat up, heart pounding, trying to make sense of the sounds. They seemed to be coming from the attic. The old cabin had an attic that Grandpa rarely used, cluttered with old furniture and boxes of forgotten memories. My curiosity got the better of me. I grabbed a flashlight and crept out of the room, the beam cutting through the darkness as I made my way down the narrow hallway. The whispers grew louder, more distinct. They sounded like voices, soft and urgent, calling my name. I reached the attic door, which was slightly ajar. Taking a deep breath, I pushed it open and stepped inside. The attic was cold, the air thick with dust. My flashlight flickered as it swept across the room, revealing old trunks and forgotten relics. In the corner, I saw a faint light moving. My breath caught as I approached, the whispers now a cacophony in my ears. There, in the center of the attic, stood a figure cloaked in shadow. It was hard to make out any features, but there was something undeniably menacing about its presence. The figure began to move toward me, the whispers growing louder and more insistent. I stumbled back, tripping over a stack of old books. My flashlight clattered to the floor, the beam shattering and scattering light across the room. Panic surged through me as I scrambled to my feet, the figure advancing relentlessly. I turned to run, but the door slammed shut, the sound echoing like a gunshot in the confined space. Desperate, I pounded on the door, screaming for help, but the whispers only intensified, surrounding me from all sides. The temperature dropped, my breath visible in the icy air. Shadows danced on the walls, twisting and contorting into grotesque shapes. I felt a presence pressing in on me, suffocating, as if the very air was being pulled from my lungs. Just as I thought I couldn't take it anymore, the storm outside began to wane. The howling wind softened to a gentle patter, and the whispers started to fade. The figure dissolved into the darkness, leaving me trembling and alone. I fumbled with the flashlight, finally managing to turn it back on. The attic was empty, the oppressive atmosphere lifted, replaced by an eerie calm. I didn't sleep the rest of the night, lying awake with every creak and groan of the old cabin keeping me on edge. Morning light filtered through the windows, dispelling the remnants of the night's terror. I hurried downstairs, finding my grandparents sitting at the kitchen table, looking worried. "Everything okay, Ellie?" Grandma asked, concern etched on her face. "Air you're watching from." I nodded, though I couldn't speak the words that still clung to me like a shadow. The storm had passed, and the cabin felt peaceful once more. But the memory of that night lingered, a haunting reminder that some places hold secrets too dark to be uncovered. The rest of the weekend was uneventful, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, the sense that the cabin was hiding something. When it was time to leave, I hugged my grandparents tightly, promising to return soon. As I drove away, the pine forest seemed to watch me, silent and imposing. Weeks turned into months, and life returned to normal, but the experience at Evergreen Ridge never left me. I found myself drawn back to the cabin, compelled to uncover the truth behind the mysterious figure and the whispers that had shattered my peace. I began researching the history of the area, digging through old records and talking to locals, piecing together fragments of stories long forgotten. I discovered that Evergreen Ridge had a dark past, stories of disappearances and unexplained phenomena that were quickly buried by time. The cabin itself had belonged to a man named Elias Thorne, a recluse who vanished without a trace many years ago. Some said he had gone mad, others whispered of darker forces at play. There were rumors of strange lights and voices in the forest, echoes of the night I had spent in terror. Determined to find answers, I returned to the cabin one crisp autumn evening. The forest was alive with the sounds of nocturnal creatures, the moon casting silvery shadows through the trees. I entered the cabin cautiously, the door creaking open as if welcoming me back. The interior was unchanged, the familiar layout bringing a mix of comfort and unease. I made my way to the attic, the memories of that night flooding back. As I approached the door, I felt a chill run down my spine. This time, I was prepared. I brought with me a notebook, a camera, and a small recording device, determined to capture whatever secrets the attic held. Opening the door, I stepped inside, the flashlight beam steady in my hand. The room was silent, the air thick with anticipation. I set up the camera and recorder, then began to explore, documenting every detail. As I moved through the attic, I felt a presence watching me, the same oppressive weight pressing in from before. Hours passed with nothing out of the ordinary, but just as I was about to give up, the whispers began. Faint at first, they grew louder, echoing through the room. I followed the sound, my heart racing, until I reached a hidden corner behind an old trunk. There, etched into the wood, were strange symbols and markings that seemed to pulse with energy. As I examined them, the air grew colder, and the whispers turned into distinct voices, chanting in a language I couldn't understand. The symbols began to glow, a soft blue light emanating from them. Suddenly, the temperature plummeted, and the room was plunged into darkness as my flashlight flickered and died. Panic surged through me as I fumbled to turn it back on, but the power seemed to drain from the cabin itself. In the darkness, the symbols burned brightly, casting eerie shadows on the walls. The chanting grew louder, more insistent, filling my mind with a sense of urgency and fear. I backed away, tripping over a pile of old books, and stumbled toward the door. But it wouldn't budge, locked from the outside. The presence in the room intensified, the air thick with malevolence. I could feel something pressing against me, unseen hands clawing at my sanity. Desperate, I remembered the stories of Elias Thorne and his disappearance. Perhaps he had uncovered something in this very attic, something that had trapped him here. I frantically searched for a way to break the spell, recalling an old family legend about the power of light and sound to dispel darkness. I grabbed my phone, using it as a makeshift flashlight, and started recording a loud, steady chant, echoing the voices I had heard. The symbols reacted, their glow intensifying as if feeding off the sound. The chanting grew chaotic, conflicting with the voices in the room. A blinding flash of light erupted from the symbols, and the room shook violently. I shielded my eyes, feeling the oppressive presence retreating, the symbols dimming until they were nothing more than faded marks on the wood. The door swung open, the cabin returning to its normal state. Breathing heavily, I collapsed to the floor, the adrenaline slowly ebbing away. The recording on my phone captured the entire ordeal, a testament to the darkness that had once threatened to consume me. I knew then that Evergreen Ridge held more secrets than I could ever imagine, and the spirits of the past still lingered, bound to the place by unresolved mysteries. In the days that followed, I shared my findings with local historians and paranormal experts, shedding light on the haunted legacy of Evergreen Ridge. While some dismissed it as mere folklore, others acknowledged the truth in my experiences, the tangible evidence captured on camera and audio. The cabin remained a place of intrigue, drawing those curious about its dark history. I continued to visit, documenting any new occurrences, determined to understand and perhaps help the restless spirits find peace. Each visit brought new revelations, deepening the mystery and my connection to the place. Years later, I often find myself reflecting on that first terrifying night and the journey that followed, Evergreen Ridge became more than just a family retreat. It was a gateway to uncovering hidden truths and confronting fears. The whispers in the pines may never fully reveal their secrets, but they serve as a reminder that some places hold stories that refuse to fade away, echoing through time and space, waiting to be heard. And so, I remain, a guardian of the whispers, forever intertwined with the shadows of Evergreen Ridge, seeking answers in the silent embrace of the pine forest. I never imagined that a quiet Tuesday evening in Brookstone would mark the beginning of the end. As a high school science teacher, my life was a blend of lesson plans, grading papers, and the occasional school event. But that night, everything changed in ways I couldn't have fathomed. I was sitting at my cluttered desk in my small apartment, the soft hum of my computer and the distant sounds of the city providing a familiar backdrop. My phone buzzed intermittently with notifications, emails, calendar reminders, a few texts from friends checking in. I barely glanced at them as I focused on drafting an article for the school's online newsletter. The deadline was looming, and I was determined to finish before calling it a day. Another buzz interrupted my concentration, followed by another. Annoyed, I pulled off my headphones, expecting another spam email or a notification about someone liking my latest post. Instead, my phone screen flashed a stark warning. Emergency alert. Immediate shelter required. Toxic precipitation warning for Brookstone area. This is not a test. My heart skipped a beat. Toxic precipitation? I muttered to myself, trying to rationalize it as a mistake, perhaps a malfunction at the weather service. I glanced out my window. The sky was overcast, but nothing out of the ordinary. Maybe a shade darker than usual due to the evening rush. I attempted to shake off the unease, attributing it to the late hour, and my mind working overtime. But then came another alert. More urgent. Stay away from windows. Cover all exposed skin. Do not attempt to travel. Seek immediate underground shelter. A strange pressure built in my chest, a mix of fear and disbelief. I quickly navigated to the local news website, but the page refused to load. Twitter and every other site I tried were inaccessible. Panic began to nibble at the edges of my composure. The first drops of the rain began to fall, but they weren't like any rain I'd ever seen. Instead of the gentle patter I was used to, these drops were sharp, metallic, like tiny shards of glass striking my window. I stood up, knocking over the forgotten cup of coffee on my desk, and moved closer to the window to get a better look. The drops left strange, shimmering marks on the glass circular patterns that seemed to pulse and spread. As I watched, the precipitation didn't just sit there. It began to corrode the window, the first layer of glass giving way to the relentless assault. My phone buzzed again, this time displaying a message from Carla, a colleague I hadn't spoken to since last week. "Alex, are you seeing this? The rain, it's attacking everything." Her voice crackled through the speaker, tinged with static. "Yes, the rain is dangerous. People are trying to flee, but it's too late. Just stay inside and protect yourself." I felt a chill run down my spine. Carla had always been the cautious one, the voice of reason in our chaotic school environment. Her warnings carried weight. I watched in horror as a neighbor outside attempted to rush to their car, only to be halted by the corrosive rain. Their movements slowed and twisted as if grappling with invisible forces. The rain intensified, hitting the building with a force that made the metal framework groan and the windows bulge inward. The sound was unnerving, a mix of sizzling metal and the tearing of fabric. A car alarm wailed briefly before being abruptly silenced. In the distance, a scream echoed through the night, sharp and filled with pure terror. Desperate for answers, I tried calling Carlo again, but my phone offered no connection. The air grew thick with the acrid scent of chemicals as the rain continued its assault, eating through everything in its path. I could feel the oppressive weight pressing against my chest, making it hard to breathe. My rational mind screamed that this couldn't be happening, that it was all some elaborate prank or a terrible mistake. But deep down, I knew the truth. Something unimaginable was unfolding in Brookstone. Mrs. Peterson from next door's apartment shattered my fleeting hope for normalcy. Her voice rang out, raw with panic. "Help! Someone! Please help! It's coming through the ceiling!" Without thinking, I grabbed my jacket and rushed to the door, but hesitation rooted me to the spot. Would it protect me, or would the rain simply consume it too? My mind raced with possibilities, but the overwhelming fear kept me immobilized. Another emergency alert flashed on my phone. Contamination levels rising. Seal all entry points. Do not attempt contact with precipitation. Seek underground shelter immediately. The urgency in the message left no room for doubt. I had to act. I quickly secured all windows and doors, trying to create a barrier against the invasive rain. The sound of breaking glass and the relentless pounding of rain against my apartment filled my ears, creating a chaotic symphony of destruction. Then came the laughter, hysterical, high-pitched, and utterly alien. It echoed through the building, originating from all directions, making it impossible to pinpoint its source. The laughter was unsettling, almost mocking, as if it held no understanding of human fear or pain. I turned to see Carla at my door, clutching her young son tightly. Her skin had begun to shimmer with the same translucent quality as the rain. Her eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and the patterns beneath her skin swirled like oil on water. "Alex," she whispered, her voice strained, "we have to get out of here." Together, we navigated the deteriorating apartment, the rain's corrosive touch making each step treacherous. The hallway was a nightmare of shattered glass and twisted metal, the once familiar surroundings now grotesque and unrecognizable. As we reached the stairwell, the ceiling groaned ominously, the structural integrity compromised by the relentless rain. Carla led the way, guiding her son through the chaos with a determination that belied her fear. We emerged into the lobby, where the entire building was succumbing to the transformation. People stood frozen, their bodies partially dissolved by the rain, their faces contorted in silent screams or twisted into grotesque smiles. The community center across the street loomed as our only hope. Its concrete walls promised a semblance of safety, but as we approached, the same rain began to assault its structure. The windows were already compromised, dark webs of corrosion spreading across the glass like a living organism. "We need to get to the basement," Carla insisted, her grip on her son tightening. "It's the only place they'll let us in." We darted towards the entrance, dodging transformed residents, who reached out with clawed hands and glowing eyes. The descent into the basement was a blur of chaos, the sounds of laughter and screaming echoing off the concrete walls. The basement door was locked, but Carla managed to force it open, revealing a dimly lit space filled with terrified survivors huddled together. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with fear and desperation. The rain outside continued its assault, transforming the world beyond the safety of our shelter. As we secured the door, the patterns on Carla's skin began to shift, more intricate and disturbing than before. Her eyes reflected the same pearlescent sheen that adorned the transformed people outside, signaling a deeper connection to the phenomenon. "We have to stay quiet and wait it out," I whispered, my voice barely audible over the din. "They can't see us down here." But silence was fleeting. The rain's attack seemed relentless, and the basement offered little protection. The patterns beneath my skin began to ripple, reacting to the environment in ways I couldn't comprehend. My heart pounded as I realized that the transformation wasn't just external, it was affecting us on a fundamental level. Hours passed with no sign of reprieve. The survivors around us shared fragmented stories of what they had witnessed, people mutating into something unrecognizable, buildings dissolving into twisted forms, and the rain itself acting with malevolent intent. The community center had become a battleground between humanity and an otherworldly force. Suddenly, the door to the basement burst open, figures clad in the same glassy skin as the rain entered, their eyes glowing with an eerie light. They moved with unnatural grace, their laughter echoing in the confined space. Panic surged through me as I realized they were not human anymore. "Stay back," Carla warned, positioning herself between me and the intruders. But it was too late. One of the transformed beings reached out, touching my shoulder. A surge of energy coursed through me, and the patterns on my skin intensified, becoming more organized and purposeful. My vision blurred as I felt my consciousness intertwine with theirs, a shared understanding dawning upon me. "Embrace the change," a voice echoed in my mind, the same metallic undertone permeating the air. "We are becoming one." I struggled to maintain control, fighting against the invasive thoughts and the overwhelming urge to surrender. Carla's eyes met mine, and I saw the same conflict reflected within her. We were both caught in the tide of transformation, teetering on the brink of losing our humanity. Desperation fueled my actions. I reached for Carla's hand, trying to anchor myself to reality. "We can't give in," I thought. summoning every ounce of willpower. We have to fight this. But the transformation was relentless. The patterns beneath my skin began to pulse with a rhythm that matched the rain's assault, an endless cascade of energy that threatened to consume me. I could feel my body changing, adapting to the new reality imposed upon us. Just as all hope seemed lost, a faint light broke through the darkness. It emanated from the corner of the basement, where a group of survivors had barricaded themselves behind makeshift shields. They held up devices emitting a powerful frequency, a desperate attempt to counteract the rain's influence. The light interacted with the patterns on our skin, creating a resonance that disrupted the transformation. The transformed beings recoiled, their laughter silenced by the harmonious clash of energies. It was a fleeting victory, but it was enough to give us hope. We have to keep pushing the light, I urged, joining the others in their effort. Together, we amplified the frequency, focusing on maintaining the balance between humanity and the invasive force. The rain's assault began to weaken, the patterns on our skin stabilizing as we resisted the transformation. Hours turned into what felt like an eternity, but slowly, the storm outside began to abate. The rain's intensity diminished, and the oppressive atmosphere lifted. The transformed beings retreated, their presence fading as the frequency overwhelmed them. Exhausted but victorious, we had managed to hold onto our humanity. In the aftermath, Brookstone was a shadow of its former self. Buildings were scarred by the rain's assault, and the once vibrant community now bore the marks of the transformation. But amidst the devastation, there was a sense of resilience. We had survived the storm, both external and internal, and had emerged stronger for it. Carla and I stood at the edge of the basement, looking out at the transformed world. The patterns on our skin had faded but remained as a reminder of what we had endured. "It's not over," she whispered, her voice carrying the weight of our shared experience. "There will be more storms, more transformations, but we know how to fight back now." I nodded, determination settling in. We have to rebuild, not just the town, but ourselves. We can't let the rain define us. As the sun began to rise, casting a golden light over Brookstone, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. The storm had changed us, but it had also united us. Together, we would face whatever came next, armed with the knowledge and resilience to protect our humanity against the relentless forces that sought to consume us. Epilogue. Months passed, and Brookstone began to heal from the devastation of the toxic precipitation. The community center became a hub for survivors, a place of refuge and rebuilding. We shared our experiences, learned from each other, and worked tirelessly to restore what was lost. The patterns beneath our skin became symbols of our resilience, a testament to our ability to adapt and overcome. We developed new technologies to predict and counteract future storms, ensuring that we would be better prepared for whatever challenges lay ahead. But the memory of that night lingered, a haunting reminder of the fragility of our existence. We knew that the rain was not just a natural phenomenon, but a force with a purpose, a catalyst for transformation that sought to reshape our world and ourselves. As I stood at the forefront of Brookstone's recovery, I couldn't help but feel a sense of awe at the resilience of the human spirit. We had faced unimaginable horrors and emerged stronger, our bonds forged in the fires of adversity. And so, as the clouds gathered on the horizon, signaling the approach of another storm, I stood ready. We had learned to fight back, to protect our community and our humanity. The rain may come again, but we were no longer powerless. Together, we would face whatever came our way, united by our shared experience and the unwavering determination to preserve the essence of who we were. The shadows over Brookstone had transformed us, but they had also revealed our true strength. In the face of darkness, we found light within ourselves and each other, ensuring that no storm could ever break our spirit.